Right, in this video we're going to be thinking all about what to do before you start writing, as much as it can be really valuable to think about what to do when you start putting pen to paper, how to structure that paragraph, how to structure the assignment, what to write, how to phrase it. That's all lovely, but there's loads of stuff that comes before that. So we're going to start at the beginning with what do you need to know before you can start writing. So the first thing to think about is, who are you writing for? Who is your audience? Now you might be thinking, well, Ella, it's my lecturer, they're going to be the one marking it. Yes. Okay, so who is your pretend audience? Because if you write something imagining it's your marker, say that's me, and you're thinking, well, Ella's just taught me this module. Ella probably knows this already. I would hope so. I would hope Ella knows what I'm about to tell her. Like, there is very little new information for your lecturer when they are marking your work. There is very little new to them stuff. So you might be thinking, well, Ella already knows half of this, so I don't need to tell her that, and I don't need to tell her that, and I don't need to explain how this works because she already knows it. But the problem is, you're not showing me as your marker, or whoever your lecturer is, you're not showing me that you know that. I know it, but do you? I can't tell that. So if you are writing as if your lecturer is your audience, you're going to skip a load of really important stuff. So you need to think about who could be an alternative audience. And so one way that I like to approach this is imagine a student from the year behind you, from the year below you, who's about to take this module. So when they start this module, they're given your essay to catch them up, give them a bit of information, get them up to speed, and give them a bit of an overview of what they're about to learn. So it's someone that has some level of understanding in your field, but actually not loads, not to the same degree that you do, to the person that you sit with in class does, not nearly to the same degree of information that your lecturer does, that whoever's marking your work does. And it's a nice way of getting yourself to think about what's an appropriate level of information, what's appropriate as a level of detail. So you can think about yourself at the start of the module. You can think, okay, how do I write for 6 months ago me, for a year ago me, depending on how long the module is. Or you could write for a student that's coming up from the next year. What will they want to know? So what fundamental definitions might they need? What foundational knowledge might you need to introduce as part of that thing, without going all the way back to tell me it like I'm 5, but without skipping things in the way that you might do if you assume a informed audience. The next thing I want you to think about is, what is the goal of your piece? Often if you're writing for like an academic journal, well, the goal is to share the findings of your study. It's to share your novel concept with the world. And so you've got to sort of go through that process, and it's very formulaic often, but actually how you express that, and especially in the discussion, can be really engaging. And you can say, well, here's the cool new thing I found, but here's how it links to everything. Isn't that really interesting? And how it all pieces together. And there is often a point, often when writing journals, your academics are saying, well, here's something completely new. Isn't that amazing? Or actually, why do we not know much about this? Like, we really ought to get on with studying more in this direction. But the other thing that can be really useful to think about when you're writing for an assessment perspective is, what content skills are there? Sure, like what content knowledge are you demonstrating, but also what academic skills are they asking you to do? If you're being asked to write a lab report, a research proposal, a literature review, anything like that, as much as you might be assessed on what you know about the topic that you are reporting about, that you're reviewing, actually so much of those assessments are about, do you understand the scientific process? And so when you're writing to show, yeah, I do understand the scientific process, and I have some understanding about the topic that I'm doing this process on, great, but you need to show us that. So think about, what is the goal? Am I trying to persuade them of something? Am I trying to show a more content level skill? Am I in a healthcare profession? Am I care planning? Do I need to show that I can care plan, regardless of what kind of condition this is, regardless of what the symptoms are, what the focus of that care plan needs to be? Do I have the skills to understand how to go about writing a care plan? What needs to be in there? What needs to be considered? Are you demonstrating your ability to critically analyse and compare and contrast different options? So have a think about not just what course content knowledge do I need to demonstrate, what understanding of this topic and this subject area do I need to show, but actually it's the how of your essay, the how of your writing is often just as important. So what skills are you needing to demonstrate here that are in addition to the concepts and the ideas? we should always write a plan before we start writing. It can be really tempting to just sit down and get pen to paper and start putting words down. But what you might find is that you end up meandering on this very interesting pathway, but you don't ever actually get to a proper destination, and there's not really any check-off points. And so there's no real purpose. And this is something that you will be doing if you get feedback like it's waffly, or you're taking too long to get to the point, or it feels unstructured. Probably because you're sitting down and not writing a plan. Or if you're getting that feedback and you're thinking, but how do I still write a plan? Well, don't worry, like I'm going to do a whole episode on how to write a good essay plan, because it deserves a good amount of time to think about that process, to think about what is involved, and we can work through building on that. But having a plan so that you know how to get from A to B, or even how to get from A to C, and what is B in the middle. What are the really important things that you need to say, that you need to show, that you need to demonstrate, that you need to make sure is in there. So having that plan before you do any writing, before you even think about how to write the introduction, is really valuable. And one thing that will really inform that is the marking criteria. So do you even know what criteria you're being marked against? What skills are they looking for? What knowledge are they looking for? So as well as thinking about, well, what do I want to say? Great, but what do they want to see from me? You could write a gorgeous essay, but if it doesn't meet the marking criteria, it won't score very highly because it's not what they want. So thinking about, what criteria am I being marked on? What skill sets am I being marked on? Is it stuff around structure? Thinking about analysis, critical analysis, analytical appraisal. Do you get marks for referencing? What do you get marked down for? What kind of errors do you get marked down for? What about content? What about structure? All of these different things. Thinking about, where do I get marks? And how do I know what is the difference between good, very good, excellent, fantastic, unsatisfactory? What is satisfactory structure versus unsatisfactory? What makes my very good into an excellent when it comes to critical analysis? So start having a look at your rubrics, trying to break them down. Sometimes they will be differentiated first, second, third year for different parts of your course. Sometimes they will be very similar. And so you're thinking, well, what is a good in first year versus a good in second year versus a good in third year? That can be really tricky to make sense of. But often you will find that there is variation, so that you can make sense of, well, this is what's very good for first year and this is what's very good for third year, and I can understand why those things would look different. So have a look at your marking criteria. What are you being marked about, and what are you being marked on a quality axis? Because when you know what you're being marked about, we can also start playing the game. Essay writing is a playing the game thing, whether that is for an assignment, whether that's for a journal. You've got a game to play, there are rules to the game, and the better you know the rules to that game, the more you can play it in your favour. So we'll have a think about that when we're structuring our essay plans, but you need your marking criteria to know how to play that game. The final step that I think we should all do before we start writing and putting words down is read. And I know what you might be thinking, Ella, that's really obvious, or you might be thinking, Ella, that's a load of crap, like I can start writing and then I can find the essays afterwards. Sure, and I thought exactly that way for most of my undergraduate, and I got through most of my BSc with that way, and it was fine. And then I became a lecturer, and I would be advising my students, you know, like, you really ought to read before you start writing. It's really good, it helps you frame your arguments. And I was, you know, saying the words, and I didn't fully believe them, but I knew that that was the right advice to give. I should give it read first then write. I should never advise people to write and read. And then when I started my master's degree, a couple of years into being a lecturer, I was like, okay, Ella, you've been giving people advice for the last year and a half, 2 years on how to write an essay, and that you need to read first before you write. So you're going to take your advice. I had this like conversation with myself about, you need to take your own advice. So I sat myself down. You're going to read first before you do any writing. We're going to read, we're going to plan, we're going to have another go through the module criteria, we're going to make sure we're confident what we're doing, and then we're going to do the writing. And do you know the really annoying thing is that it worked. I'm still a little bit mad about it. I'm still a little bit mad because yes, it is easier sometimes to write than read, because you're like, yeah, I know this. Like, this is an established point. I'm sure I'll be able to find a paper that supports this, but actually for a really well fleshed out argument, for a really well fleshed out critique, which especially as master's level, like third year level, that's what you need to be demonstrating. That is very, very, very difficult to do when you write and read. Whereas if you're reading then writing, it's all there. And so I did this for my first assignment, and I remember writing it. I remember getting my grade back. I did really well on that. I think I got 75, maybe 80. I can't even remember, but it was a really good grade on my first like master's level assignment. And it was a confusing subject. We were doing philosophy of science, which was a real like mind fuck. And so to get such a good grade, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this does work. Fine. And it was good though. Like it helped me to realize that's why people keep giving this advice. And so I promise, like, read first then write. It will really help you to build up an argument, build up those points, start filling in your plan of what kind of things you want to say. Because you can say, yeah, I need to make a point about this topic. I need to have some arguments about why this is such a good idea, but I also need to have some critical analysis. It's hard to do that without those ideas really well informed. So if you're someone that diligently reads along as you go through the module, not just the set texts, but anything additional, fantastic, this will be well easy for you. But actually thinking about if you're someone that doesn't do so much reading through the module and you get to the assignment and you're like, oh, I need to do some reading now. Yeah, you do. If you want to pass your assignments, yeah, you absolutely do need to do some reading. It's so much easier to read first and then write. And as much as I hate it, I have tried it, I have tested it, it does work. But yeah, those are all the things that I think we ought to be doing before we start putting pen to paper as part of the planning process. So thinking about who we're writing for, what are we writing, why are we writing it like that, what criteria are we being marked against, so that we can play the game, and thinking about reading first and then writing. So I'm going to have an episode coming up all about how to plan an essay. I'm really looking forward to that one because it's something I find really valuable, and then once it clicks, it is in, you've figured it out, and you can do it again and again and again for every single piece. So I'm really looking forward to that one, and I'll see you there.